Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. When it comes to weddings, there are so many rules that brides are told that we need to follow. Whether our parents are telling us that there's a tradition or something that we need to do, brides hear them from all different angles. So how do you know which rules you're allowed to break and which ones you're forced to follow? Well, that's where wedding etiquette comes in. Ugh, I hate that word. So today I'm going to break down the wedding planning do's and don'ts to help you determine which rules you should follow and which ones are worth breaking. Before we begin, my name is Julia and I am the owner of Julia Noel Weddings. On my channel, I bring you guys wedding tips and advice to help you guys plan your weddings. Don't get me wrong, I understand why wedding etiquette is important and how it can help you in your wedding planning, but I also don't want you guys to be stuck in a situation where you make a decision solely based on wedding etiquette and maybe it was a rule that you really could have broken. So here are some wedding planning do's and don'ts. So, what is wedding etiquette? Well, I'm glad you asked. According to a very valid source called Wikipedia, etiquette is the set of conventional rules of personal behavior in polite society, usually in the form of an ethical code that delineates the expected and accepted social behaviors that accord with the conventions and norms observed by a society or social group. Now that that's out of the way, before you think there's nothing wrong with etiquette, this girl is crazy, bear with me. I completely understand why wedding etiquette exists. All I'm saying is that it's changing. Wedding etiquette is changing. So without further ado, here are some wedding planning do's and don'ts. According to wedding etiquette, you should be spending 2 months' salary on the engagement ring. Now at this point, you guys are probably already engaged, but I think it's still worth talking about because let's face it, that's outdated. You shouldn't have a price tag on how important someone is to you. Don't feel like you have to have a diamond engagement ring. Moissanite is a really great alternative to diamonds, and there are all sorts of other stones out there that you can get. You don't have to get a diamond ring that is crazy expensive for you to get married. You don't. It's a symbol of your commitment, regardless of how expensive it is. Let's talk about the guest list for a second. So don't uninvite guests. Obviously, I think it makes sense why people say it is very rude to uninvite guests. I would say if you could follow this rule, awesome. The one caveat I will say is I'm recording this in 2021. We're in a global pandemic. So there are a lot of reasons why brides are needing to uninvite guests because of the situations that they're in. So there are ways that you can uninvite people. I'm happy to help share that with you guys if that's something that you would be interested in, but just know that if you are in the situation where you can't get around it, you have to uninvite guests. It's understandable if the reason is because of a global pandemic or any extenuating circumstance. Just do it the right way. There's definitely a right and a wrong way to uninvite guests even during a pandemic. Don't invite someone to the bridal shower if they're not invited to the wedding. I think this goes for any wedding related event. I didn't want anybody at my engagement party that I wasn't planning on inviting to the wedding because I just felt that that was rude and not really fair if they were invited to a engagement party but then didn't make the cut to the wedding. I think this rule makes a lot of sense. Again, there are always extenuating circumstances. So if you're in the situation where the global pandemic has turned your wedding planning upside down, I do think there is an exception here where you can invite people to the bridal shower that maybe were not able to come to your 10-person wedding or 20-person, 30-person wedding. So if you're having a micro wedding because of the COVID-19 guidelines, you still want the opportunity to invite someone to a bridal shower, especially if the bridal shower is virtual. Invite your whole original guest list to your bridal shower if that is the case. Because at the end of the day, my personal opinion, bridal showers should not just be about the gifts. Obviously, I think that's a part of it. You know, you're being showered with gifts. But I know for me, my bridal shower, I could care less about the gifts. I want people to be celebrating with me and I want families to come together and the people that are closest to me to be together. And so if that's the way that you present it is, hey, I know we weren't able to be together for the wedding, but I would love to celebrate with you, at this virtual event. I think that is completely understandable as long as you're not making it all about the gifts. All right, attire. I can't believe I have to say this one, but it's one of the rules that people talk about, and there are still brides that ask this question all the time, so I want to address it. According to wedding etiquette, you're supposed to wear white unless it's not your first wedding. I think that is wrong 100%. You don't have to wear white. You don't. Back in the day, wearing white was a sign of purity, and let's face it, that's not the rules that people follow anymore. Times have definitely changed since then. So if you want to wear a black dress, wear a black dress. You want to wear a rainbow dress with a colorful feather train? Go for it. It's your wedding. Wear whatever you want to wear. If people judge you, so what? It's what you want for your wedding. Don't let people tell you that you have to wear white. I mean, I even get this question like when to wear ivory versus when to wear white. If you want to wear ivory because it matches your complexion better, do ivory. If you like the color white better on you, wear white. There are no rules here, so don't worry about any wedding etiquette here. Just do whatever makes you happy. And same goes for whether or not it's not your first wedding. It's still your wedding. Who cares if it's not your first? Do what you want, wear what you want. It's your wedding. This one is tricky. I have very strong opinions on this one. So, according to wedding etiquette, you should not have a cash bar or no bar at all. It is wedding etiquette to have an open bar and to pay for the alcohol for all of your guests. Now, I support having an open bar. I think that having an open bar, if you have the means to do that, and if that's something that you want to do, is great. I know I'm doing that for my wedding. I'm all for it. However, a lot of people don't understand that there could be plenty of reasons why you don't want to do this. For example, maybe you just don't have the budget. No one should force you to have to pay for all of the alcohol for all of your guests if you don't have the financial means of doing so. I would even argue that there's maybe a compromise that you can make here. Maybe beer and wine is complimentary. That could be a great way of still offering your guests complimentary drinks, but not having the huge bar bill. But I don't think that you should feel like you need to have an open bar just because everybody's telling you that that's the only way your guests are gonna have a good time. Some people have issues with alcohol in their families and they don't want to have a free-for-all where every guest can drink as much as they want. There could be a very personal reason for why people don't want alcohol at their weddings. So if you're someone that's hearing other people wanting to not have a bar, don't judge them. You don't know their situation. And if you're someone in that situation where you're like, I don't think I can have alcohol, I don't know how I can make it work, don't have alcohol. You should never have to feel like this is a requirement. Now, what I will say is if you don't have a bar for whatever reason, or if you're not providing it complimentary to your guests, just give them a heads up. The last thing you want is for your guests to be completely taken by surprise, come to the wedding and realize that it's dry. So if you give them a heads up, they'll know what to expect when they get to your wedding, and it's not like they're going to be completely shocked and then annoyed at your wedding, especially since you do want people to have a good time. So just give them that heads up so that they can plan accordingly. Also, for my brides that are not having alcohol at all, do mocktails. You can still have a bar, but make it virgin, make it non-alcoholic. There are so many cool things that you can do with mocktails. You could make it special to you and your fiance, and I think that would be a really cool way of still having an element of fun at your wedding, but not having the drunk guests or the issue that alcohol may present for your guests. Do give your vendors a gratuity or tips. Okay, obviously as a vendor, I love when I get tips at the wedding. I think that's a great way of telling me that you appreciate the work that I'm doing for you. But is it expected? Absolutely not. Most wedding vendors will say a tip is never expected. It's always appreciated, but never expected. So don't feel like you have to tip your vendors just to follow some type of wedding etiquette. What I would say is if you're tight on money and you don't have the means to be able to tip all of your vendors on your wedding day, write them a rave review, give them referrals, help them get more business. That will go way farther in the vendor's mind than receiving an extra $100 in an envelope at the reception. Your word of mouth, to me, means a lot more than an envelope. So while this is a rule that some people follow, I think you can break it. I think you don't have to give your vendors a tip unless you have the financial means and you want to show them that you appreciate them going above and beyond for you. But there are other ways to show appreciation to your vendors. provide a mailed invitation with an RSVP card with postage. I think times are changing. This is definitely a rule that you are allowed to break. Digital is the future. Printed invitations are not going to be forever. That's my opinion. I think that printed invitations will always be an option, but I don't think it's going to be something that stays the norm. So what that means is if you don't want to send a mailed invitation, don't feel obligated. If you want to take RSVPs online, take RSVPs online. The only thing I'll say is just be cognizant of your guest list. If you have elderly guests that might not be able to use the technology that you're requiring, give them an alternative. Let them give you a phone call or call them directly. If you want something like a keepsake, maybe get one printed just for you, just to have it for your photos and for your scrapbooks or anything like that. But you don't have to send 100 invitations and save the dates through the mail if you don't want to. Now, if you are not providing a way of RSVPing online, definitely provide postage. I think that's just a common courtesy. But if you're giving them an alternative, then postage is not required. Don't provide registry information on your invite. I agree with this one. I think that this one makes a lot of sense. There are tons of other places that you can put your registry information, so it's not really necessary and you don't need to ruffle feathers for no reason. So put the registry information on your wedding website and then let other people ask you where your registry link is if they're not looking there, but you don't need to put it on your invitation. Now, if you already sent your invites and you didn't know this and you included the registry information, I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think people are going to care. So don't worry if you already did this. Just try not to make it all about the gifts. That's really where people could get a little bit annoyed. And do send thank you notes. Yes. Also completely agree with this rule. Yes, you paid for your wedding, but your guests are not obligated to show up. They're not obligated to give you a gift. So if they came to your wedding and supported you on your big day and or gave you a gift, you should definitely reach out and thank them personally. I'm even a huge believer in handwritten notes, something that's a little bit more personal, because I think that can go a long way and I think your guests will really appreciate it. Now, there's one rule out there that says you have to do it within the year, but why wait? Just do it. Just get it over with. Once you get back from your honeymoon, spend some time with your fiance and write them out and send them out. So as a quick recap, don't follow the wedding planning do's and don'ts strictly because of wedding etiquette. Do it because it feels right to you and it makes sense for your situation. There are always exceptions to rules. The same goes with wedding planning. So if you have exceptions due to the global pandemic, that makes sense. That is fine. But for the most part, do your best to follow the etiquette within reason. Like I said, there are some rules that are just asinine. They are outdated. Don't even worry about it. So follow your own morals. Let that be the guiding factor in these decisions. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you guys to know what the wedding planning do's and don'ts are. If you want to stay in touch with all things weddings, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I put out new content each week and I can't wait to share more wedding tips, tricks, and advice with you all. Until next time, happy wedding planning.